Welcome to Shut Up and Sit. I'm Yedda a consciousness coach and consultant. I'm on a mission to bring mindfulness to the modern world. Each week, we will offer ancient healing practices, real-world examples, and the latest research in neurobiology and behavior change into fun conversation that invites you to wake up your highest self. Now, let's go shut up and sit. All right, welcome back to the show. Again, as always, Yedda here. So excited and really honored. And actually, I'm going to throw you a new word today. Grateful to be here talking to you. And I'm excited because I've got a little bit of a different kind of vibe and flow for you today for what we're going to do and what we're going to talk about. We're moving into the chapter around gratitude. And I started really thinking about gratitude, and I'm kind of looking at my book here, and you guys, it's hard to believe that we are all the way into chapter 9 of the book. And at this point, I've lost count of how many episodes and how many lessons I've been teaching on. And it's just, I'm just grateful. My heart is full, and it is just, I love the word gratitude. I love being grateful. The title of this chapter is Gratitude is the Goal. And when you live life with a grateful heart, if you really cultivate that, and that's really what mindfulness has been doing all through all these 8 chapters that you've been working through, gratitude, if you know it or not, has really been under the current the whole time, because all of existence is cheering for you, loving you, supporting you, is grateful that you are here. And you've heard me say this along the way, you matter simply because you exist. When I first heard that and read that, I thought, what the hell does that mean? What does that mean? People, like, I matter simply because I exist. That's what gratitude is. And I believe when we start talking about gratitude, and words like grace come to mind, and peace and love and connection and belonging, they're all born out of a grateful heart, a grateful place. And so this whole chapter, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into that. But as I started thinking about the gratitude piece of this, I've had a lot of people here in the community that I've worked with locally, and people have reached out. And as you guys are listening to the show and learning on the online course and working, I've just been amazed, blown away, grateful for the people who just keep showing up in my life and in my path. And I made a commitment as I started to create these episodes, these lessons, to just let life work with me and let me work with life, and people and places just would start to show up. And that's the way this life works when you realize that at the center of everything, you're in control of absolutely nothing, but you're in control of absolutely everything. There's a paradox to the work of being mindful. You are in control of mastering your mindset. And when you master your mindset and you start to look for what's right, not what's wrong, you're really cultivating and living from a place of gratitude. And when you do that and you get out of your own way, life starts to show up and you see people, places, and things differently. Or they've been there all along. You probably just didn't notice them because you just had this filter of dread and doom and suffering, to the point that now by chapter 9 and by this place that you're in and listening to the show and learning this course, you should start to, and I'm aware I just said should, I would like for you to really be in a place where you can start to say, you know what? I can see things and be grateful for it all. Awareness opens the lens of awareness, shows us a different perspective. It's been there all along. It's the Dorothy Wizard of Oz stuff. It's been inside of you all along. And so in this place of the right people, places, and things come across your path, what happens is life gets effortless. You show up and you see what's right. And when you see what's right, then people begin to come to you. They flock to you like fireflies and moths to a light because they want to be with that energy. And so that's how I've always done my work. This whole world of social media and education and doing all this, it's all interesting to me. But honestly, when people say, how have you ever built your business and how did you work? And I said, honestly, I've just cultivated gratitude and showed up and been grateful for what I have. And then somebody will tell somebody who tells somebody, and then ultimately somebody crosses my path. And so here we are today talking about gratitude, and someone who's crossed my path recently is Amanda, who is really an interesting, beautiful soul. We got connected on social media through a group of women that I've been doing group coaching with. They've been in the online course for Shut Up and Sit. And Amanda has been an incredible person that I've seen a lot back and forth, and we've had mutual connections. And she reached out and she said, girl, I hear you're doing some amazing work, and I would love to come down and interview you and put you on my show. And I said, well, I'm going to actually do one more ask of you. Can you come down and actually do the interview with me and do it at my studio where we do our show, so then I can have it for our show as well. So a little bit of switch here for you. You're going to actually hear in just a second the interview where Amanda comes down, and she's with Literary Enthusiast, and she's a ghostwriter, does a lot of female empowerment, an incredible teacher here at one of the really amazing private schools in Richmond. Amazing, beautiful woman who lives from a place of gratitude. So I invited her down. Once she invited me to be interviewed, I said, well, we're going into the chapter of gratitude. I'm so grateful to be able to tell you my story as a woman, my story of empowerment, my story of who I am and what I do. And I thought, wouldn't that be really cool? We're getting ready to wrap up the book. We're getting ready to wrap up these series of episodes, is to share the gratitude that I have in speaking to Amanda about this work. And you all listening and learning with me are a part of our community. And I am grateful for you, grateful for Amanda. So she came down, we had a chance to sit down, and I did a little bit of the front end of the episode today is her and I. And she's interviewing me, which is a little bit of a twist. So I was so grateful for something different. And then at the end of her show, which we're going to clip out, her and I keep talking, and we learn a little bit about her and how her gratitude shows up in some gratitude tools and resources. So hang tight for the entire episode, because right sandwiched in the middle is her and I interviewing. And then for about a few minutes afterwards, she and I go into a little bit more discussion around gratitude. And she talks about how gratitude has been a key to success and the power of the written word. And a lot of the tools that you're going to learn about cultivating gratitude are coming up in this chapter. So we talk about that. So I just want you to hang out, continue to shut up and sit and listen, because you're going to hear us switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to pass the baton off. And before I pass it off to the interview, I want to read you the quote that I open with in chapter 9. And this is why I want to read this to you. Gratitude doesn't mean we're always, as you're going to hear from Amanda and I, it doesn't mean you're always grateful for the good stuff. And so this quote that I love by Cheryl Strayed that's in the beginning of this chapter says, nobody will protect you from your suffering. You can't cry it away or eat it away or starve it away or walk it away or punch it away or even therapy it away. It's just there. And you have to survive it. You have to endure it. You have to live through it and love it and move on and be better for it. And run as far as you can in the direction of your best and happiest dreams across the bridge that was built by your own desire to heal. This is where you are. You're building the bridge. Gratitude is the bridge. And Amanda and I are going to talk you and walk you through some of that. Sitting with your suffering is something to be grateful for. I want you to hear that. You've been learning the tools to not only be grateful for what is working, but you're also cultivating gratitude for the suffering and learning how to be with it in the shut up and sit process. So shut up, sit down, listen to Amanda and I. We're going to have some really cool conversation around empowerment, around women, and also around gratitude. So enjoy.
We are live On the Couch with Amanda. Oh, I'm so excited to have Miss Yedda Stansel with me. You guys know who I am and how passionate I am about just women empowerment and women walking in their purpose with boldness. And so I have this phenomenal woman, which I just met for the first time today. This is amazing when two women can come together, even though this is the first time they met, and just do some great things. So Yedda, welcome to the couch. How are you feeling today?
I am feeling fantastic. I am so excited to meet you.
I'm excited to meet you as well, and just learn more about what you're doing and how you are creatively changing the world. Tell me this, what makes Yedda tick?
Oh, how many minutes do we have? Days, weeks? Oh. Yeah, that's a great question. And, as you were opening and talking about purpose, and it was such a big question, everyone's, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? And I've been thinking about that lately. And to me, purpose is what matters, what matters. And different things matter to different people. And so what makes me tick is, I would say in one simple sentence, is I love to help people wake up.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
You find that a lot of people are, especially women, are asleep right now.
Girl, we're zombies walking around in trances, in beliefs, in dogmas and social norms that have been given to us that we don't even realize aren't ours to own. Wow. And so this awakening process, and honestly, I say that because for me, it was about the journey to waking up. I literally thought my ego was who I was. All these things I did. Wow. And for women, that's such a disservice because there's so much doing involved in that I never really felt, what was it like to be me?
Right.
Yeah.
Just being. I will say that it took me, I'm 40 now, but it took me till year 37 before I really understood who Amanda was.
Yeah.
It just, like you were saying, just the doing. Okay, if I'm doing this, then this is tied to who Amanda is. No, not so. And so I had to go through this journey. So I want to know, tell me more about yourself. I asked you what makes you tick. What are you giving to this world right now? What are you giving?
It's going to sound really strange. I'm giving a lot of silence.
Oh.
And what I mean by that is I'm spending time sitting and listening. I'm listening to myself. I'm listening to other people. Even in my work, my book, my coaching, teaching people, and this is the language I use, and the title of my book is called Shut Up and Sit, teaching people the power of shutting up and sitting down and going within and listening and putting their ear down and really listening. Who am I? What am I grateful for? What is my purpose? What matters to me? How can I use that for something greater than myself? And so those questions helped me to cultivate in some silence and stillness, a space and a freedom inside of me that I realized I am the master of my own mind, my own fate, my own world. And how do I show up in the world? It's really up to me.
Right.
And that's what I mean by that waking up. And so what am I giving to the world is the silence I'm cultivating is what I'm giving to others because it gives me space and freedom to show up with kindness and compassion. And it allows me to be, which then when I can be with you, you can be.
Right.
And we're not all caught up in our egos and, well who do you work for? Well, where did you come from? Well, what are your kids doing? All these labels that we get caught up in as women. And the other thing, you didn't ask me this, but I want to bring this up right now because when I think about what I'm giving to the world, as women in the Western world, we are raised to compete against each other. And this is something that I want to give to the world, and just my acceptance of myself is also accepting of other people. But even in the West, we don't have a sisterhood, a sense of connection and belonging. Right. Because think about this, and for your listeners, I mean, we all watch Cinderella and all the princess movies and so the narrative in the Western world is, as little girls, is you've got to do all these things to take care of everybody else, and you've got to do all these things to be perfect because somebody's coming along to pick you.
Right.
And then what happens is I get so caught up and you get so caught up, and women, we get caught up in, well, what if I don't get picked, that we actually turn against our own gender.
You're right.
And we are so mean, especially, why do you think middle school is so hard for girls?
Girls are mean.
Oh, we are mean. And so what I'm also wanting to give to the world is some empowerment and education around, it's not our fault, but what we do as a result of the waking up is our responsibility. And we do have that capacity to say, wait a minute, so nobody's showing up on the horse. And if he does, he showed up and took on down the road. So
been there.
So here I am and here you are. And so we have this false sense of self that says somebody's coming to pick me. And as a woman, that determines who I am. And so now it doesn't matter. And whoever picks you as a woman, a man or a woman, whoever picks you, for women, we've just been raised, we're just sitting here waiting. Shut up, sit down, keep our mouth shut. So when people say, why did you name your book Shut Up and Sit? And I'm like, because it's the language of punishment I want to transform into permission to go inside and figure out who I really am.
Oh, that is so awesome. The fact that, before I connected with you. I didn't know you did this work, but it's amazing how just what I'm doing and what you're doing, how it's all aligned.
Exactly.
You know? I want women to wake up. I want them to know that it doesn't matter if they are connected to someone or if they're not connected to someone. There is purpose in who they are.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that, you know, you're telling women to shut up and sit and just really listen. Not only listen to others, but listen to themselves.
Yeah.
Listen to what's happening inside. So how are you teaching women how to wake up?
Yeah, great question. So I do that in a couple of different ways. So obviously my own journey, and I think this is true for a lot of us, is what I call myself a wounded healer. We have our wounds that then turn into our wisdom.
Right.
And then all of a sudden we start saying, well, how do I tell more people about that? And so as a narrative coach, I'm a certified narrative coach, I was doing a lot of one-on-one work and with men and women, just in the corporate world. And when I had my little kind of wake up where my ego did the big old belly flop into the pool, which, you know, my listeners here, it just kind of hit the bottom of the pool and realized there was no water and everything just kind of splatted. I had to do a deeper dive to figure out those questions. Who am I? You know, I was going through a horrible divorce, marriage. And I say horrible, I created, I'm not a victim. I co-created the horrific and in many levels, probably looking back, created a lot of it. So in that waking up of getting, you know, ending a 20-year marriage, my son going off to college, you know, I'm sitting there and I'm figuring out I have to take care of myself 110%. Nobody's coming to save me. Nobody's coming to take care of me. What would it look like to be able to be the sole source of all of my joy and happiness and purpose and meaning? And so I was doing my coaching, and at the time, as I was doing all this work and putting myself back together, I started realizing what I was teaching my clients and what I was learning kind of had a process to it. And so I worked with somebody and said, you know, I have this idea. I want to create a coaching manual, which wasn't unusual in the coaching industry. So I started this manual. And as I wrote the coaching manual, I spent a year, we got on the phone a couple of times a week, and I said, so here's where I talk about thoughts, and here's where I talk about feelings and behavior, and literally teaching people about how belief systems are built, which was my first career as a health coach. And I partnered that with this narrative coaching, and I said, you know, I know how to help people understand how they think, feel, and behave, and how to then behave, feel, and think in new ways to create new outcomes. But I said, I just want to put together a manual. Well, we finished the manual, and then she says, you know, you tell me a lot of your own human personal stories along the way. And I thought, well, yeah, it's probably right. I mean, I talk a lot. And she said, I'd love to capture your story. So here I was, Amanda. I was like, all right, cool. We got a manual and we got a story. And I'm going like this, like the worlds are separate, because I didn't tell people my story. I didn't tell them my trauma and my drama. I showed up and I put all that away, and I said, where are you? Where do you want to be? Let me help you get there. And so that coaching process I thought was great. But as I started to unravel and then kind of put myself back together and did this manual and shared my story of what I had overcome because of the work I had done that I now helped people with, the woman came back and she said, here's your book. I said, my book?
Oh, wow.
I said, wait a minute. I wanted a coaching manual, and then I wanted a little, you could document my story, maybe like my kids, and, you know, I don't even know if I want my son to read this.
Right.
She had put it together in one version.
Wow.
And I said, she is fired. And I do not want the world to know this. I wasn't planning on writing a book, is my point. I had zero interest in you knowing what was in my closet.
Right.
And so she said, your story is so powerful that I think you need to have your human story woven in. And the work is so deep. People need to know what you've overcome. And I had never, those worlds didn't meet. And so when you say, how am I helping people, that turned into taking that process, if you will call it a process, but taking that workbook and my human story out into doing group coaching, which COVID hit. Then I now do online coaching and courses and podcast and all kinds of cool ways. But I just want to show up and shut up and sit down and talk to anybody that'll listen. And I'm just finding different lanes. So I do one-on-one, I do group, I do in-person, I do online, self-paced virtual. I'll get on a microphone anytime, anywhere. So the podcast was a natural fit. Talking to you today was a natural fit, because I want to educate, empower, and entertain my audience so that they'll go, that's actually something I think I can do.
Right. And that's the goal.
And entertain's important because you know what? Personal growth and development doesn't have to be hard and arduous.
Right.
And, and my people heard me say this, and you can wear cute shoes and you can put on a nice outfit. You can still be in the world while you're doing the work to figure out what's going on in my inner world.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that. Most of it, something that you said, hit home when you were talking about not wanting to share your story, like
girl, I didn't want anybody to know. I walk in the room and it's like, whew, here I am.
Right.
But you know what? That was the hardest part for me, was to let her go, because she was just a facade that got me so far. But I had never really shared who I really was with people, because I didn't think as a woman anybody wanted to know who I really was.
Oh, but they do.
And now I know that, but in this narrative of the minority, world, females, I teach a lot about this with female leadership now is, we were still in the early 1900s, and countries in the world were still not letting women vote.
Right.
I mean, think about that. This is our rights as women are still relatively new.
They are.
We live in a world where it feels like we got a lot of equality, but for women, this is a newer space for us. And we also live in a world that says if you want to succeed, you need to be like a man. And so where's the model for women where, what do we do? All of our models are based upon Caucasian male success structures.
You're right.
So what's the rest of the world do? I tried to work as hard as a man. It almost killed me.
You were not built that way.
No.
And there shouldn't be a standard. What I'm learning, just from sharing my own story and everything that I've gone through, is that there are women out there who need to hear what we have to say and what we've gone through. It gives them permission to be free and to be themselves. And so we can set the standard, we set the tone, we change atmospheres when we enter into the room, regardless of whether we're a male or not.
Yeah.
We have that power.
Yeah.
And so when we share our stories, we share our truth, we're giving another woman permission to do the same.
Yeah. And this is what we forget as women, I think, too. Sometimes I get caught up in the disillusion or the illusion, whichever way you want to go with it, that I do wake up and I think, okay, so I am free. I have access to everything. I live in Richmond, Virginia, just like you do. So we technically could wake up and say, well, we're free. You know what? In 1997, when my son was born, a woman still had to have a man co-sign a loan at the bank. I mean, just sit with that for a second. My son just turned 24. I couldn't get my first business loan without my husband's signature.
That is crazy.
It's crazy. So, girl, I had a power of attorney, and I signed his name on those papers. I mean, that was we had a lot of beginnings of endings, but I said, look, I'm going to do this. So either you're with me or you're not. I mean, there's a little running into the wall with me, but I mean, I thought that's crazy.
That is crazy.
Crazy. And then up till 3 years ago, this is no lie, and I don't need to give specifics and names. I was reviewing a legal document. And I asked a question about a fine print that I saw, and he said, well, I didn't expect you to read the document. And I said, why? I said, because you're a woman. 3 years ago. And I'm usually not into bashing, but I think we do need to name, we are still working on true, real female empowerment in leadership and in the world. And I don't blame men. I know men are raised with their belief systems and their structures. Everyone is being asked to let go of beliefs and rebuild right now. Right. And so for us as women, I think that we bring a lot of compassion and we bring a lot of ability to multitask and to nurture and do things that are going to be really required in this rebuild that our world is walking into.
Right. I agree with that totally. And women have to be willing to be trailblazers.
Oh, yeah. And I will tell you what, the trailblazers, we take the arrows.
Yes.
I mean, if you want to hang back in the pack, go for it. You might not get as many arrows. So I've got a few I'm still pulling out, but
me too.
I'd rather take them than be sitting there twiddling my thumbs, working a job and just being just over broke, wondering, is this all there is to life?
Right. And I'm glad you touched on that. Being a mother, being a wife, caregiver, all of that. That's just not all that's attached to us.
No.
There's so much more that we can do
Yeah.
And a lot of us have been programmed and trained, like you said earlier, to just, okay, I'm going to get me a spouse. I'm going to raise these children. And then after the children are raised, then I'm going to figure out why I am on this earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why can't we have it all?
Well, we do have it all.
do.
It's just a waking up to remembering and seeing that we do have it all. And we need each other. And so all of humanity and human connection, we do need each other. But I think there's a lot of social norms that have been built. And this isn't just about gender, I mean, across history, to really keep people disempowered. And so I love that you talked about the word empowerment. I find, though, a lot of times it's hard to sell empowerment.
It is.
Because people, they don't even know that that's a possibility. And so all minorities are like, wait, you're trying to tell me I'm free and I have empowerment and I can come out in the world and do whatever I want, whenever I want. There's still some limitations out in the world. There are. And I think as we open our minds a little bit more, especially as women, and join together and bring it out in a loving way of what we can bring to the world instead of beating people over the head with it, then, I mean, as women, we're naturally receivers. Our energy, everything about us is receiving and nurturing. So we need to show up in the world and be more nurturing with each other first.
With each other.
And then let the world see we're here to help. Yeah.
There's a phrase that I always go back to when I think about just, positive female relationships and how we shouldn't compete with one another. Her success is not my failure.
Yeah.
A lot of women, they have a hard time with connecting with other women and encouraging and empowering other women because they think that if she's succeeding, then they're failing, and that's not true.
Yeah, no.
That's not true.
Well, and I go back to that whole Cinderella analogy, the shoe fits, you get picked. I mean, think about that. So then all of a sudden we think, well, it didn't fit me. Well, you didn't get picked, but we're waiting for someone to come pick us when we can get up and go buy our own pair of shoes.
Right. Pick yourself.
Well, and so this is the space for me right now, the narrative of be the love of your own life. Say, I do to you. Please. And then when you show up in the world as a whole human being, as a whole woman, people are drawn to you.
They love that. They're attracted to that energy.
Yeah. Nobody wants some broken down crybaby in the corner who's like, oh, I can't do it.
Right.
And we've just bought a lie. Right. You can do it. And we need to help pick each other up and remind each other.
That's right.
Straighten each other's crown and be like, you got it, I got it, and there's enough for all of us.
Enough. Plenty.
Yeah.
There's plenty for all of us. My next question for you is a woman who is trying to figure it out, right? Trying to figure out how to balance everything she has going on, to wake up, to shut up and sit. What is the first step?
Oh, well, the first step is to just shut up and sit.
Okay.
Literally, just stop and just be with yourself for a minute. And that's the first thing I tell all my clients, and regardless of if it's one-on-one or recorded on a course or on a show, is you have everything you need inside of you. It's all right here. And so if you can just buy a few minutes of freedom in the inner world, it will show up in the outer world. And so I have moms, I have executives, I work with all different types of men and women, but my female clients, I know that place. I know what it's like when you're making lunch, you got the kids, you're getting out the door, you're trying to go to school, you're grabbing bags, I know that world. And my son, I was so grateful when my son was little, when we would have those rough moments, my son and I had something that we would say to each other, and he would stop or I would stop. But I would love when he would do it, and he'd stop and he'd say, Mommy, can we start our day over?
Oh, I love it.
And so it was just that pattern interruption of just stop. So we make this harder than it is. You don't need a degree. You don't need anything else other than stop, close your eyes, and go within and breathe. And everything that you need is right there, because that's where you find the space first. Right. And if you can just stop and be like, oh, all right, I'm here. This is what's happening. And you can regain connection with yourself. If you're not connected with yourself, I don't believe you can be connected to source. And if you're not connected to that, you can't connect to anything or anyone.
Nothing. I agree with that.
And so there's a space there that's the first thing you do. You just shut up and sit down and you just go with them.
That is just so in alignment with what I said August was going to be like. I had told people that July was all about, action, but August was about sitting down and listening.
Oh, well, isn't that perfect? Because
Yes.
you're going to get a copy of my book today. So then you're going to learn how to shut up and sit.
Oh my God,
Don't you love how that works out, people? Who knew? And, this is something that's interesting and I'm very passionate about. Mindfulness is a big buzzword right now. And I found mindfulness in my journey of healing. But here's why I like mindfulness. And I don't talk about it from an Eastern religious point of view because I don't have any Eastern religious ties to mindfulness. But I was in the deepest place of my suffering and trying to figure it all out. And I thought, the next, whatever I go into, career, relationship, community, whatever, partnership, I'm going to bring all this crap with me. Right. And I want to clean out the closets, air out the house, of my entire inner psyche. So that when I show up in the world, what I have to offer is my presence, just the essence of who I really am, not what I do. And the only way I found that I could find that was the shutting up and sitting down in the mindfulness practice of sitting with myself in silence and stillness every day. And I don't mean putting my ticket in for here's the things I want, universe, I'll be back at 5 to pick them up. Nope, not talking about that. I'm talking about it was just minutes at first, 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes of literally sitting down and closing my eyes and then just going, Yedda, what's going on with you? And learning to talk to myself. What do you need today?
That's good.
Where are you at? You got 5 things coming down the pike in the next 15 minutes. And I started to learn to kind of almost like parent and talk to myself. Think about as women how much energy we put into talking to everybody else lovingly and kind, our kids, our partners, the people we work with that we take care of. Is your inner narrative matching? Do you talk to yourself that way, the way you talk to others when you love them? And I found that the act of shutting up and sitting down, I had to learn a new relationship and narrative with myself where it now sounds like, sweetheart, where are you at? What do you want? Because that's how I would talk to my son.
Right.
If you called me and you were like, girl, I've got some stuff going on, I'm like, honey, have a seat.
Right.
Tell me what's going on.
Right.
So I started to be in relationship with myself in the same loving way that I was giving to everyone else. So the shutting up and sitting and that mindfulness practice, what I realized was, because for women, we are not raised with a belief of I'm enough. And I learned to cultivate the belief that I'm enough by going within and talking to myself and loving and accepting her for exactly who she is.
I love it.
And when I can say, I'm enough, right here, right now, all of my flaws, awesomeness, everything, what happens is then I can show up and be in relationship with you. And because I'm enough, I'm already setting the default that I see you through the lens of enough.
Right. I love it. I love just everything that you bring, your energy, all your practice, all of it. How do people get in contact with you? How do they find you?
Oh, it's a secret. It's a secret. If y'all live here in Richmond, we have this restaurant, Mama Zoo. You know Mama Zoo.
I know Mama Zoo.
And Mama Zoo is like the underground. It's like there's no marketing, there's no advertising. Right. Everybody just finds out about it. They stand up around the corner. I want to be the Mama Zoo of personal development.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to tell you why. Because I want to y'all, you can find me. And the reason I say this is I'm careful about how much I am advertising marketing only because I don't want it to be about my ego.
Right.
And I will promise you this, you'll never see a selfie or a bathroom photo or anything inappropriate about me on social media because I don't want to trigger other people's egos. So I do have a website and I have a little presence on social media. I'm very careful about that because I want to empower myself and others through education and a little bit of entertainment, but I want to honor the presence of being a woman too. So I am careful because we can get really tricked into, and I've had somebody say, well, we just need to use your face and body and we'll get you all over anything. And I'm like, no, we're not going to do that because that would be a disservice to all women.
Right.
And I'm not playing that game anymore. I know how to do that game. So I have a website, yeddastansel.com. Great place to go check that out. I have an online course, which is SUAS community.com, which stands for Shut Up and Sit community.com. And loving doing that. And then, of course, on any social media, Yedda Stansel. And I'm around and I'm all for connecting with anyone at any time to just talk about this work because I believe we have a moral obligation as women to help each other wake up and to bring all of our amazing talents out into the world. So this isn't about trying to sell anything.
Right.
It's about serving and meeting women where they are, and even if it's for a cup of coffee.
That's it. The serving. So important. That's what we're called.
But I love wine too.
Me
so
too.
We get
Me too.
coffee in the morning, wine in the evening,
Yes,
in a beautiful place. Because that's the part I love about being a woman is all our fanciness. You know, I mean, I just love that. We get to be a little, I call it barefoot and bougie. That's my speed.
Oh, barefoot and bougie. Yes.
Yeah.
So, my friends, oh my goodness, Miss Yedda, you have blessed my soul. And I know that everyone who has listened, I know you guys are just like, oh my gosh, I need to find her. Even though she may be in a little bit in hiding, I'm going to find her, as you should. You definitely should find Miss Yedda. Her energy is just phenomenal. I'm excited to just, read, shut up, and sit because it's
I can't wait to hear, because you'll come back. We'll have you back on our show, and you'll talk a little bit about that, and go a little bit more into who you are. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being on the couch with Amanda, where we can just sit and let it all out and just be. Well,
girl, I'm not letting it all out. I got my Spanx on. I got to hold a little bit in.
I am holding it in. I'm holding it in as well. Could barely get into these shorts today.
Don't ask me to exhale.
Oh my goodness, you guys! Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of On the Couch with Amanda. Stay tuned for another one next Saturday at 2 p.m. See you soon.
I love that. That was so fun.
Yes, it was.
Yes. Thank you for interviewing me, and our listeners are going to get a kick out of that, because in the show I never really I'm never on that end of it. I'm bringing people in. Well, I'm bringing people in to talk about who they are, what they do. And I think I did a little bit of my story on my first podcast episode, which was interesting. And so that's awesome. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about who you are now that you know a little bit about me. So tell us about Amanda. And so for my listeners, I'm not going to try to pretend to pronounce. I was like, what's your last name? So tell me about you and who you are. You can start with your full name.
Okay. Well, I am Amanda Edie McKeithen. I just got married last June. So Amanda Edie McKeithen. I am here in the Richmond area, known as the literary enthusiast. If it's words you need, words is what I do. And so I have the literary enthusiast creative firm, where we teach the busy professional woman how to creatively change the world. And I do that in many ways: ghostwriting, editing, proofreading, creative consulting. When I'm not doing that, I am a full-time teacher at St. Andrew's School.
I love that. That's how, I was on the board for St. Andrews for several years.
So I will be starting year 5 actually next week.
See, we didn't even know we had that in common. You guys, did you hear that? So I was on the board for St. Andrews. I graduated with my MBA in 2012 and then served on the board for a couple of years. It was part of our strategic plan to rewrite the whole kind of future of the school and do some cool stuff. And St. Andrews is near and dear to my heart. Those kids and that building, and for our listeners, it was the original kindergarten. Grace Arendt's back in the day. I forget what's the year it started. Early
18 something.
late 1800s.
Yes.
And so the building still stands today and is a school. So St. Andrews here in Richmond, Virginia, and wonderful.
Love it.
It's like a private school education.
Right.
I mean, really, and it is free.
Yeah,
and it's amazing. And teachers like you are changing the world because when you work with children, you're empowering them. And what a great age, because that's where beliefs are built between the age of 2 and 7. Those little brains are getting taught ways to go out into the world that they might not learn at home.
You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, because we pass our beliefs on. They're they're our human behavior. Our belief systems are our human behavior. They just get passed on. And gosh, I'm so excited to hear that and learn that about you.
I teach first grade, and I have been teaching for the past 15 years. I did 10 years in public school. When I left public, I was like, I'm never going to teach again. But then I got divorced, And then it was like, oh, you have to figure out what do you do? What are you good at?
Yeah.
I'm good at teaching.
Yeah. What
and
do
so
you
I
love
went
to
back
do?
and I went back into the classroom, found St. Andrews, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal place. All of the teachers, the principal, the whole system over there.
Right.
So, wow, had no idea that we had that
Yes.
connection. That's fantastic. So we just kind of wrapped up a little bit, kind of you were curious talking about what I do and now turning it back onto the literary enthusiast inside of you. So tell me a little bit, because we're kind of moving into, on my show, you know this, I told you we would kind of covering all the content in my book, and we get into one of the last chapters, which is gratitude. And as you were just talking, and you were talking about the words are your thing.
Right.
And so a lot of the work I do with clients and in my book is, you know, the whole power of gratitude, the whole power of words. You know, our words are literally just a reflection of the thoughts we're thinking.
That's it.
And so I'm curious, as a writer and somebody that does ghostwriting and knows the power of words, what would you say when you think about gratitude? Why is gratitude so important in your thoughts and in your words and your actions, from the space of being the creative, the word, the literary person you are? So what power do you think gratitude really has have you seen in your life, but does it have in words in general?
Oh, most definitely. I feel like when you have a sense of gratitude up here inside, it manifests everything. Like what comes out of your mouth. If I am grateful for the life or the space that I'm in right now, that is what's going to come out of my mouth. If I'm not, then I'm going to speak the opposite. So it's like, this say that, and I've had to train I've had to train my brain to do this work. Instead of saying, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that I have to get up and, teach these children when I'm tired, as me being grateful. I'm grateful that I have this opportunity to mold these young people. You see that?
Oh, yeah.
Like changing your mindset, changing the words, having this sense of gratitude is major. With writing as well. I believe that our words can either heal or they can either kill. That's my belief. And I believe that whatever we put in that atmosphere is what we will manifest. And so you have to live with the spirit of gratefulness. You have to. Even when it's hard.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, so, gratitude journals are a big thing, and everyone talks about these gratitude journals. I talk about them in the book. I've got these resources of ways you can be grateful. And it's almost comical, but a little bit sad that we have to, and I had to learn, well, how do I act grateful? What is gratitude? I mean, because if we're not raised in environments that practices gratitude, noticing what there is to be grateful for. So gratitude journals are a big thing.
Right.
And so, the writer that's in you and the writer that's in me could probably be like, we would get that. Just get a book and sit down and be like, I'm so grateful for. That's a new thing for a lot of people. And I did some research on that, and I thought, well, why do gratitude journals work? And so what I found, which I would be curious to know some of your thoughts as a writer, what I found was, well, one, it's repetition, right? We get it out of our head, we look at it, so we have some awareness of what we're grateful for. But I found that when you write out what you're grateful for, the actual act of writing activates different parts of the brain. And this as a teacher from a learning point of view. And so it's fine to walk down the street and be like, oh, I'm grateful for the sun, I'm grateful for my kids, I'm great. Those are easy gratitudes. Right. But when you sit down every day and you write out 5 gratitudes, and you every day have to do 5 different ones, you get a few days in, a few weeks in, and then you start realizing you can't be grateful for the car, the dog, the kid. Right. Like you got to, and what I tell my clients is you can't repeat.
Right.
So whatever you're grateful for yesterday, find 5 new today. So as a writer, do you actually encourage people, and as a teacher, to actually write things out? As a ghostwriter, do you write things out? Like, what's the power of the written word?
It's action.
Yeah.
Most definitely is action. I love how you said earlier about, just the repetition. But when you're writing it out and you're looking at it, it does something inside. I think about, me writing, and I have done that in my journal, writing things that I'm grateful for. it just gives me a sense of peace. It's like pulling stuff out, helping to change my mindset, helping to redirect my focus. It's action and helping you to see it, taking it from your mind so you can see it. I know not everybody is, religious and follows the Bible and whatever, but a verse comes to me where it says, write the vision, make it plain. Anything that I've ever accomplished in this world, I wrote it down first.
Oh, really?
Everything. I'll never forget, before I turned 30, I read a book by, it was a novel by Debbie McComber. And in that book, the title of the story was 20 Wishes. And in that book, she had her character write down 20 things that she was grateful for, or 20 things that she wanted to accomplish. I think that was what it was. Even though that was a fiction story, I took that practice. I'll never forget. I took that practice before I turned 30, and I wrote down 20 things that I wanted to accomplish before I turned 30, and I accomplished all of those 20 things.
Yeah.
And I did those things. Thank you. I did those with my son. I was like, write down 20 things before he turned 18.
Yeah.
What do you want to accomplish before you graduated from high school?
Yeah.
He didn't accomplish everything, but it's just the practice of writing it down. My daughter, she's had to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Writing it down, seeing your words. And believing
out
that
in
it can,
the world. Yeah.
and believing that you can manifest the stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting. You talk about seeing your words, and, the first time I saw my book and literally, like, honestly, like, I'm not kidding you guys, when somebody handed it to me and I opened it up and I looked at it, I was like, oh my gosh.
Right.
Even though this is in me and I teach this and live this, but to see the words, and now I laugh, you guys, because I look at it and I'm like, I said that?
Right.
Like, what? Because, it's the ghostwriting process, which is what I did to write my book. I talked. I'm a talker. So I met a woman who said, well, I have a master's degree in oral storytelling and I love dictation. Right. So I just love to type what people say. And I was like, girl, we need to get married. Right. Like, what? I didn't know people like you all existed.
Right.
And she was amazing. But when I looked at my own words, the gratitude that I felt, and when I look at my work, the gratitude for the people that are a part of this process. Robin is here behind the camera every time we record. People like you in the community. Just the lives that we all touch and that touch us. I don't know how you could live a life without being grateful.
Without being grateful.
And if we could tap into gratitude on a daily basis before we walk out of the door of our house and go down the street, because I believe there's more right than there's wrong with any of us and with anything going on in the world. It's just, we got to see it.
We just have to see it.
And sometimes I also believe that the universe says, I'm teaching you to be grateful for the crumbs, the little bit, before you get to the mountaintop of all of it.
I agree with that so much. I had this conversation, I think it was a couple weeks ago, just about that, how sometimes we want more, but we're not grateful for where we are. Embrace your place.
Yes, I love that. Embrace. Do you all hear that? Embrace your place. That's a perfect way to say it. And that's, acceptance of where you are. Right here, right now is enough. And that's what we were just talking about with female empowerment is enoughness. Like, is what I have enough? And I will tell you this, travel to another country. That is one of, and I know travel right now is still a little bit of a challenge. Travel to another country and you realize a lot of our problems are first world problems.
That's it.
Because I hear people say, I need a new car. And I'm thinking, there are people looking for water.
Right.
And you're upset about a 4-year-old car. And we have people around the world starving who, my travels in the Middle East and Africa were so powerful for me to tap into gratitude. Not gratitude like, oh, I'm so glad that's not me, but into a deep gratitude of being grateful for just the air we breathe, the water we drink, that we get to walk in and turn a light on, that electricity works. So much of what we do in our world here in the U.S., I feel like we take for granted.
We do take it for granted.
Yeah.
And it's like we're never satisfied.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's yes.
Always,
never.
And I have found myself in those spaces too, where it's like, oh my goodness, I grew up in a house where it's like, oh, you got this. This is the definition of success. And until you get there, you're not successful. And so you get programmed and trained to, okay, I got to reached this level of success, and we're never satisfied.
Yeah. Well, because what happens is what we're told is we're not enough. This isn't enough. This shirt isn't enough. This book isn't enough. That, like, nothing is enough. And so this is why in this whole work of Shut Up and Sit, the gratitude of the moment of literally just scanning where you are and saying right here, right now, this is what enough feels like. This is enoughness.
It is.
Right here. And when we can be with enoughness, and that's why I love mindfulness, because that's what cultivates enoughness. It could be breaking down and in fire around me in my inner psyche. And if we cultivate the belief, and it's okay, I'm going to make it through this because I have enough. I have skills and capacities to get through this.
Good.
And it's the pivoting to gratitude too. And so with your work is, wanting to do female empowerment, and the show we just did for you on the couch. And so I'm curious, where did the idea come from for you to write, to speak, to empower women? Where did that get born?
I will say that came from just I guess what I needed as an adolescent. 17-year-old Amanda. Let's go back there. That's where it started. 17-year-old Amanda. I'll never forget having a conversation with my dad. He asked me, I was trying to figure out who I was at 17. Didn't really have the guidance. My mother and I didn't have a good relationship, and I was able to talk to him more, but he was very strict. And I'll never forget, he said, Amanda, what is it that you want to do with your life? And I said, I just want to write. And he was like, well, how are you going to make that happen? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm 17. I don't know. But as I went, I made a lot of not so good choices from 17, just say from 17 to year 37, when I truly clicked. I realized that I needed a group of women. I needed a sisterhood. I needed to see women getting along. I needed to have a mother who poured into me. And because I didn't have those things, it was my responsibility to be that mother, to be that community, to be that sister. And so that is how this was birthed. I had to use my struggles, my trauma, and everything that I went through and what I needed, and be the solution, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense. So you cultivated a sense of gratitude for what you didn't have so that you could create something for what other people could have.
Right.
So that contrast is such a great teacher. And when we talk about gratitude, it's an interesting concept because what I run into, and I remember falling prey to this, like I've got to be a Pollyanna and I can only see what's good and what works. I'm even grateful now for my suffering.
Yes.
So that 17 to 37 year window that you were talking about, I was like, it's like we live the same life. You know what? I wouldn't go back. If somebody walked in today and said, I can give you a wand and you could go back and you could redo it all. I wouldn't redo it all. And I have one little caveat. I wish I could say, look, I'll still be me. And I know I learned from my suffering. If I could modify one thing, I do have a little bit of a spot of, I just wish I wouldn't have hurt so many people in the process. That's the one thing when I think about that, the temptation to change it is to think about how I hurt other people.
That's it.
I wouldn't change my life story because I'm grateful for my challenges, my trials, my tribulations, all of it, because it's who I am today as a result of that. So I wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here if we didn't have our suffering, we didn't have our decisions. But the truth is, at any moment, this is why I love mindfulness and the power of shutting up and sitting down, we get to choose to begin again.
Oh, I love it. Yes.
And that's what you chose. You said, I'm going to be the things that I don't have in my life for other people. And I'm going to show up and I'm going to educate and empower women and create and write and teach and make an impact on the world. Everything you're doing is allowing other people an experience that is going to help them grow and evolve, but it's because you saw what was missing for you.
Right.
And this is where I believe that our wounds are our wisdom. Mm-hmm. So if we hadn't had those wounds and we hadn't had those experiences, you wouldn't have the wisdom and you wouldn't have the drive and the desire and the purpose to keep showing up and do what you do in our community.
You're absolutely correct.
And so that's a place of gratitude to be able to be grateful for all of your life, not just the good stuff and not just the pretty things and the nice weather. You know, sometimes it rains, sometimes it pours, and it's being grateful for all of it.
Because everything is purposeful. There's beauty in everything. In the mud,
Yes.
there's beauty in it. You know?
Yeah.
It's just training your mind to see it.
Yeah. You could have written the book, because that's part of my tagline was no mud, no lotus, which was digging into the mud. You know, in the Eastern teachings, they talk about the lotus flower, but the lotus flower on top of the pond that's so beautiful is connected all the way down into the mud. And you got to dig in the mud, plant the seed, you know, get it wet. The seed's got to break open, but it has to have that struggle in order for it to crack open. We're the same as human beings.
You're right.
Yeah. So we've got to have all of that. And the story of personal evolution, it's interesting. You've pinged on so many things, but this is what I love about when people come together. And you guys, Amanda and I just met and have been talking and back and forth on virtual stuff, but in person. But when two like minds come together and two souls come together and they've got things to contribute and offer to the world, and they're operating from a deep place of gratitude as a core belief and enoughness as a belief, we don't need to get into all this idiosyncrasies of all the ego trappings, because we can come together and really experience being with each other. And that expansiveness can't be contained.
It can't.
I don't want to bottle it up. I want to give it away, because what I learned was it's limitless.
Yes.
You're making me think about, before we wrap up, you mentioned earlier scripture, a song, and my grandfather used to sing this, and it is well with my soul.
Oh, my dad used to
It
sing
is
that
well
all the
with
time.
my soul, and I love that song. I love the modern version of it, and sometimes just whatever is going on, it is well. It is well, it is well, it is well. And that's what gratitude is for me. And I'm grateful that we have people like yourself in the community that are out there working with women, working with kids. Girl, you've got a lot going on.
I got a lot going on.
Yeah. But I love it. I love your energy and your enthusiasm, and having you show up today here at the studio, hanging out at the Mindfulness Bar, which you all know, I say this, you were just day drinking some silence. We're shutting up, we're sitting down, we're hearing about each other's story. And so as we get ready to leave and you think about this, and so our listeners are listening on the show, Shut Up and Sit, and then we also take the video version of our talks and put it on our online course as a resource. So I want you to just take a minute and think about, so we're kind of, we're in the gratitude section, so people are going to be hearing and talking and reading about gratitude when they get to this talk and they get to our video. So what are some words of wisdom that you would like to share with our listeners and our viewers about gratitude and how gratitude plays into success?
What I will say, and I said this earlier about embracing your place. I've had to learn, this is a practice that I've had to take on, you know, especially when I think back to all the things that I've gone through, the things that didn't work, my struggles. And I've had to train my mind to embrace where I am. Yes, I can want more, but there's so much power and so much beauty into the place that I am now. And at any moment, a season could change. It can. Things change. But even that, shifting isn't easy. And you have to be able to find gratitude where you are now, find gratitude in your shifting season, because that's trying. Because, you know, change isn't easy. And we know that change is necessary because nothing grows in comfort, right? But it's not easy. It's not easy. And so understanding that this process of success is a process.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen overnight. And there are going to be some things that you're going to have to put into the atmosphere in order to manifest it. But embrace every single part of it.
Yeah.
And
grateful.
Being grateful for it, and not allowing someone to tell you what success for you looks like. Mm-hmm. I had to disconnect from a lot of different people because some of my choices wasn't in alignment with what they viewed as success. I'm married to a woman that definitely was not in alignment from where I grew up, you know, my background. And so I had to start this life, and in order to be Amanda, the fact that I'm not depressed, the fact that I'm not suicidal any longer, the fact that I'm not seeking validation in other people and things, that's success for me. Mm-hmm. I had to go through this tough process to get here, but I'm grateful. like you, I wouldn't go back and try to change anything other than I have hurt some people.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for every single moment, every single thing that has happened to me, because I'm a badass.
Girl, yes, you are. And you know what? We are all badasses, all. And you can show up in any size, shape, form,
Right.
decision, choice in life now as that badassery
Right.
that you are. So
Right.
I love that. And that gratitude that you hold is so evident in what you say and the presence that you bring in the room. And if we can cultivate a culture of enoughness, shutting up, sitting down, going within and cultivating gratitude for just the little bit we have, and get permission to be enough in that space, that begins to blossom and grow. And that's what we're talking about. That's why this show exists. That's why I want the world to wake up, to shut up and sit. You can't go running out into the world and start screaming until you can silently and in stillness go within and say, but who am I and what do I want?
That's good.
How can I use that to serve something greater than myself? That's gratitude.
It is.
Operating from a place of gratitude. And girl, you teed me up a minute ago. See, I love how the world works, because we're moving into the next episode is going to be all about the 20. I literally have it in my book. You're going to see it's a wheel. It's the 20 things about how there's literally the 20 ways to cultivate gratitude.
Oh, I love it.
And so this sounds simple to some people, but this is why we end with gratitude. We're taking people to the mountaintop here is cultivating skills and capacities to learn to be grateful. And there's 20 of them. And so there's a wheel in the book. You mentioned your story.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there and I was thinking, this is how the world works.
That's
the
how it
universe said,
works.
y'all just going to shut up and sit down and talk
That's
today.
it.
People are going to get something from it, and I'm going to drive home and you're going to drive home, and you're all going to go your own ways. What I want you all to leave with, I hope that you've gained some insight that right here, right now, you're enough. I'm enough. Our listeners, our viewers, we're all enough. And when we can cultivate and live from a place of enoughness, gratitude grows immensely.
Oh, yes. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yes. So I am so grateful for you, Amanda.
Grateful for you
I'm
as
so grateful
well.
for all of the world, whether they're listening or watching or not. You all make a difference. Everything we think, feel, and do impacts the world. It has a ripple effect.
Yes.
So I can't wait to have you come back after you finish reading the book.
Yes, I can't
and
wait.
you go through the content and you've got some more wisdom, because girl, we've got shows coming. I've got series on shut up and sit in relationships, shut up and sit at work, shut up and sit at home. We are going into lots of directions, because nobody is responsible for your happiness except you. Except me, except you all watching and listening.
Right.
So I am going to wrap us up with a grateful heart. Thank you, my friend. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you on the next show. Have a great day.
May you know goodness. May you know peace. May you know contentment. May you be